Hello there, it's Samantha. So today is a very momentous day because today is March 1st, 2019, and today the Jonas Brothers released a new song. Oh my god. Have you heard it? I want to know your opinions on it because I was a huge fan of the Jonas Brothers when I was younger. I was pretty obsessed and I thought I was going to marry Nick Jonas. I don't know why, but I think, when you're a child, you just think that these things are going to happen. But then, it's obvious they're not going to happen. Anyway, so yeah, I was obsessed with the Jonas Brothers, but I do actually really like the new song. I think it's really catchy and I've probably listened to it like 6 times already today. So yes, it was actually the first thing I did this morning when I woke up. So yes, that's my little tangent over. But anyway, today I'm coming to you with my February wrap up. I read 5 books in February, which I'm pretty happy about. I actually read 3 books physically and then I listened to 2 audiobooks. Let's just go on and get into the books. The first book that I finished was a reread for me, and that was Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. I reread Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone in January. I listened to an audiobook. Like, I wasn't gonna continue on with the series, but then I was like, I just have to listen to this again. Also, I find them so easy to fall into and I don't have to give it my full attention, so it's really easy for me to listen to it whilst I'm doing other things. I love Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. It didn't used to be one of my favorites, but now I really enjoy it. I definitely wouldn't say it's my favorite. My favorite, I think, is Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, but I do really enjoy it, and I obviously gave it 5 out of 5 stars because I love Harry Potter. So the only book that I don't rate 5 stars is Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. I don't really like Order of the Phoenix. It's still like a 4-star book for me, but it's not a 5-star. But anyway, that's enough of that. Moving on. The second book that I finished in the month of February was Vicious by V.E. Schwab. This was another reread for me, actually. I first read this book in 2016, I want to say, and I loved it the first time. It instantly became like a book that I was calling like one of my favorite books of all time. I don't exactly feel the same way anymore. I still really enjoyed it, but this time around I only gave it a 4.25 out of 5 stars. If you don't know what this book is about, which I don't know how you wouldn't because the sequel came out in September of last year and it's been everywhere. But if you don't know, Vicious is a book that follows Victor and Eli, who used to be best friends, and they were actually roommates. Oh my god, they were roommates. And they went to the same university, and it came time for them to do their thesis, and Eli decided to do his on people called extraordinaries, or EOs, but it's basically people who had a near-death experience and then they get a power. So Eli wanted to investigate this and see if there was a connection between that, how people become EOs, if that even is a thing, and ultimately they kind of turn themselves into EOs. And then Victor ends up in prison, and this book starts 10 years after they were at university when Victor has just got out of prison and is hellbent on revenge against Eli. And we meet other characters in it as well. I did really enjoy it this time, but I thought the pacing was a bit off, but it was probably just because I like already knew the whole story. But I had actually forgot the ending. I think it was pretty good that I did reread it before going into Vengeful, because I definitely wouldn't have understood some of the things that happened. This was definitely not my favorite second time around, but I did still really enjoy it, and I would definitely recommend it if it sounds like something you'd be interested in. It's a good story, and I really love the characters that we follow, except for Eli because he's a total asshole, but anyway, so yeah, I would definitely recommend it. The next thing that I read was actually a play, and I had to read it for school. I talked about this in my January wrap up, how I'm doing a module on Federico Garcia Lorca, and so I had to read another play, and I have 1 more play left to go. But the next play that I read was called Bodas de Sangre. I didn't get a rating because when I read a book for school, I don't get a rating because I don't think it's fair, because I almost always hate it in some capacity, because I hate required reading, and then also because I have to reread the things so many times that even if I enjoyed it in the first place, I absolutely hate it by the end. So yes, I didn't give it a rating, and I won't be giving it a rating. It was weird. All of his plays are really weird. It was definitely interesting. Bodas de Sangre, if you don't know, it means blood wedding in Spanish. If you didn't know, I speak Spanish. I study Spanish at university. The next book that I read in February was one that I finally got to. I had been meaning to get to it since September when it came out, but I had to reread the first book, which I already mentioned, and it was, of course, Vengeful by V.E. Schwab. I'm obviously not going to talk about what happens in this book because it would just spoil everything, but we did get to see our old characters again, and I loved that. We also got introduced to new characters, which was really cool. I really enjoyed it. I feel like it took me ages to read, but then at the same time, I think it didn't take me that long to read. I basically got into this habit of like waking up and then reading for like an hour in the morning on days that I didn't have classes, and then I got really invested and I couldn't stop reading, so it was great. I haven't had that feeling in a long time, and I felt so accomplished when I finished it because this book is like nearly 600 pages, I think. Overall, I ended up giving this book a 4 out of 5 stars. It was a bit of a disappointment, especially considering that Vicious used to be one of my favorite books of all time. It was still really good, but I did have issues with it. The ending was really open, and I didn't want that. I wanted to see more conclusion on the stories, because obviously we follow characters from our first book. I do think that she's planning on writing more because she introduced new characters with new powers, characters, so I do think that we'll get spin-off books following those new characters, but I wanted to see our old characters get wrapped up because as much as I love them, I don't want to hear about them anymore. Like, I do love them, but I'm done with them. It's like in A Court of Thorns and Roses, how I read the third book and then I was like, okay, can we just put Feyre and Rhys to bed? Although not to bed because we know what they'd be doing and I don't want to know about that anymore. A Court of Frost and Starlight scarred me, so I don't want to know anything that they're doing in a bedroom. But okay, let's put them to rest. But it's like that again. I just like, I don't want to see them anymore. I want them to be wrapped up. I also didn't really understand one of the characters' motivations. We never really got her backstory and I don't really know why she acted the way she did. So that kind of irritated me. And also we had a new villain and she was just like straight up batshit crazy. Like unlike the other characters who are very morally gray, also slash evil, like you know their motivations a lot. And her, I just thought that she was just kind of a psycho and I was like, okay. But why? I just thought like her other characters were so much more fleshed out and had so much more depth to them, whereas this new villain character, she was just like, just evil, like full stop. Something I really enjoyed in Vicious was that the timeline like jumped around, so we got things in the past, we got things in the present, and like it was all counting down to like the final event, and so it was like 5 days before, like the night before, like stuff like that. With this, she was doing that again, but it just got so confusing because there were so many different like jumps in the timeline and so many different characters that you had to keep track of, all the different storylines, and I was just like, okay, stop. It wasn't that confusing, like I understood most of the stuff that was going on, but it was just like a lot to keep track of in my mind. That was another reason why I only give it 4 out of 5 stars. That makes me sound like I absolutely hated this book. I absolutely didn't. Obviously, I give it 4 out of 5 stars. That's like quite a good rating, but it was just disappointing for me after all that anticipation. But oh well, it was good, but just not perfect. The last book that I read in February was Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. I read this one on audio again, obviously, because that's how I reread them. This is my 4th time reading the book, and I loved it this time around. I mean, I always love it, but like, I really loved it this time around. I listened to it in like 2 days, and I was just like obsessed. It was so good. I really want to rewatch the movies because I haven't watched the movies in years, but I don't have anywhere to access them. Like, they're not on Netflix or anything, so I'm like, where am I gonna watch them? I obviously gave this book a 5 out of 5 stars. It's self-explanatory at this point. I love it so much. I love Harry Potter. It's fantastic. Yeah, anyway, so those were all the books that I read in the month of February. Anyway, that is all I have for today's video, so I hope you liked it. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. If you're new here, feel free to subscribe down below. I upload videos on Fridays, so I will see you next Friday. Bye!